And now we're talking with Lisa Levinson, who directs In Defense of Animals' Sustainable Activism Campaign, which offers emotional and spiritual resources for animal activists. And Lisa also co-directs the Wild Animals Campaign, which advocates for wild animals. She also started Public Eye, Artist for Animals, to teach compassion for animals through the arts, and I can't wait to ask her about this, the Toad Detour to help migrating toads safely cross the road in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Sarah. I'm happy to be here.
So excited to have you here. So I want to dig in first with this Toad Detour. Now, I know we both share, we've had conversations in the past about our concern for animals who are on the road. And so can you tell me a little bit about this?
Oh, sure. Well, actually, driving on the road is really how it all began. I was working at the time in an area that was near the Schuylkill Wildlife Center for Environmental Education. And it just happened to be an area where it was in the city of Philadelphia. However, it was kind of a woodsy area, and so there were trees, and it was a very nature-centered place. And so I was driving, as I do along with many other people, on a little shortcut that went through the woods. And as I did that, I noticed that there were possibly leaves on the ground, and I thought, odd, because here it's spring, and that usually happens in the
Uh-oh.
fall. And so I stopped the car, and I went, got down close and took a good look, and it turned out these were actually toads. And I had stumbled upon this annual toad migration, and there were hundreds of them that were in the road. And of course, most people didn't see them and were literally running right over them. And that just broke my heart. And so that began this passion that I had for trying to help across the road. And over time, it actually grew into a detour project. And that was because one of the years I had some friends out there with me. We were trying to help the toads. And this wonderful policewoman stopped by and was asking me, "What are you doing?" And I showed her actually a toad that had been run over, but often they're not quite dead, they're still alive. So I was showing her this, and it touched her heart. And she said, she called one of her partners and she said, "Go get your vehicle and block the road on the other side, and I'll block it here." We had a couple of hours where the toads were actually free to migrate, and it was just like this a moment, one of those spiritual moments where you say, aha, something special is happening here. And so that really gave me the idea to create an official toad detour, and it really took off with the city officials, and I was able to do a press release, and people loved the idea. The toads were on their way to make whoopee, and they really wanted to protect them on their route, and it was amazing. We had like a couple hundred volunteers that signed up to help these toads cross the road, and it really warmed my heart to think about all these people who care about these amphibians.
I love this. One of the facts that I'm constantly spitting off to folks when we're talking about animals is this this little nugget that 1.3 million humans are killed on the roads every year worldwide. 1.3 million. But 1 million, over 1 million animals are killed daily in the US alone. That's pretty shocking. Now, I don't know how many toads. I haven't actually gotten the numbers that would refine it down there to amphibians. But I think it's one of those pieces that we don't always think about when we're talking about animals. It doesn't always come into our conversation about how much wildlife becomes flattened fauna. So I love this story, Lisa, of the toad detour. And I think it gives us a lot to think about. So I'm going to broaden a little bit from there to your work with In Defense of Animals. Now, I know that one of my spiritual practices every morning is I go onto your Instagram, I see what's been posted, and with my coffee, I start taking action with all of the things that you guys have posted there. Can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing and how people might get involved with it?
Oh, sure. So In Defense of Animals has many campaigns to help animals of all kinds. So I help with the wild animals campaigns, but we also have a farmed animals campaign, and we have campaigns to help really liberate cetaceans and elephants, who are iconic megafauna that often wind up in zoos or aquariums. So this is part of having them go to sanctuary and new places where they're not on display in the same way, and they have better an environment for them that's more suitable. So we even have a campaign for wild horses. Many people don't know that wild horses are rounded up using helicopters and all kinds of scare tactics, and then they're brought to holding facilities and often slaughtered. This is the wild mustangs we think of as the symbols of freedom, and they're actually being killed. So we have a lot of campaigns that try to address issues that are very important to most people, but also go unnoticed in the media, and also sometimes even with legislators. So we try to advocate for animals. So that's a big part of what In Defense of Animals does. And actually on our website, we have these take action pledges and petitions that you can actually we have a newsletter you can sign up for, and you'll find out what's going on each week. And then each week we have a take action item or two that you can click on, and that way you can actually help even from the comfort of your own computer. You can do something to help animals.
I love that. That's one of my favorite. Well, it's a sad thing to do in the morning, but it's also a hopeful thing to do in the morning, because I feel like, I see all these things on my social media feed, and I can feel kind of hopeless about what's going on and what's happening to humans, what's happening to animals, what's happening to planet. And that's a way that, in a couple of seconds, I can take action. So I'm going to ask you a follow-up before we move on to the next question. Why do you think there's so much of this going on, these different ways of exploiting or oppressing or just doing not cool things with animals? Why do you think we don't know about these things more?
Well, that is a very complex question because it has so much to do with our social mores, how we grew up, what sort of traditions we experienced as a child, and also our family dynamics. So much of it has to do with what we're enculturated to believe. Just as sometimes we think it's okay to eat some animals, and then also to have other animals who live with us as family members, as pets or companion animals or animal companions, however you like to say that. So I think this is part of what's going on, is just trying to help people make that connection between all living beings, all sentient animal beings, and valuing and respecting their lives, no matter what their shapes and sizes are. So I think that what we're trying to do is to raise awareness about all of these animals and how all of them suffer, and that we may have a part in that without even knowing it.
And I think that's a big piece of it. And so, I want to move on to what I really love about your work is the self-care piece for activists, right? And the tools and the things that you've done to combine your love of animals and your concern for animals with spirituality. So we're going to talk about that in just a second. But how I'm going to ask another follow-up that, I'm coming up with all these great ideas popping in my head. So I'm going to ask them because they feel like they're pertinent. But, sometimes when we start having this conversation and it starts to go this way and people say, stop, Sarah, I don't want to know. I don't want to know about the sad things. I don't want to know about the gross things or the things I can't change, or I don't want to know. How do we open ourselves up to wanting to know? And how do we do that with care for ourselves? Is that something you can speak to?
Sure. Yeah, I think part of it is a really important spiritual practice that really crosses over many different traditions, which is compassion and empathy. So when we start to practice compassion and empathy, not just for our immediate people in our immediate family, our immediate community, to humans, to the environment, but also to animals. They're part of these circles of compassion. And when we start to open our hearts and really look and listen to what they might be experiencing, I think that helps us to kind of soften our hearts a bit and to welcome in other species, let's say, into this place of compassion that we all have as human beings.
And I remember at the beginning of my journey with all of this, I was really, really good at beating myself up a lot as well. And so I think one of the things that I always think about too is the compassion for ourselves in this process of awakening to all of what's going on as well. Because I know that at certain times I just, yeah, I felt, I felt really disturbed that I didn't know about all these things, right? And I asked myself a lot, what does that mean about how I've lived for, okay, entirely too many years, without knowing, right? You know, I was in my mid-30s when I started to ask these questions about this because I had been conditioned in just like you're talking about. So what I like about what you've done, Lisa, too, is talk a little bit about your group, Vegan Spirituality, and the work of the Interfaith Vegan Coalition, and these places where you can have a community that can help you through this rather than going through the kind of lone wolf, so to speak, beat yourself up process of trying to awaken to some of these things.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, I think first I'll share a bit about what we do for In Defense of Animals as part of our Sustainable Activism Campaign. So that is really an effort to help animal activists, people who care about animals, to also take care of themselves and to take care of our community of activists too. And because it is really sad and almost traumatic, really, to observe, witness what's going on to other sentient beings. And when that does impact our hearts, sometimes we can feel down and despondent. And so part of that is knowing that you're part of a larger community and you're part of a movement that's actually growing and that is that things are changing and that it's actually a very positive experience to be here right now where we can take these actions to help animals. So in the midst of all this, we need to take care of ourselves. And so part of what we do is offer support. We have a support line that people can actually call. You know, the number is 800-705-0425, and people can call with their concerns, something that they've seen that day that's really shaken them up. They can talk about something that's happening within their community that they want to share that's troubling them. And so we like to provide support. We also help connect people to one another. Oh, did you know that there is a group that actually helps animals in your community? You're not alone. Here's how you can reach out to them. So we try to provide like a networking service for people who care about animals so that they know that they're part of this solution to the animal cruelty that we do see around. So that's one piece, is offering that. We have resources on our website, including a piece that's just dedicated to compassion fatigue, which is that feeling of overwhelm and frustration and anger. It's all kind of bundled together, but can also be very exhausting on a mental, spiritual, and even a physical level. So we try to provide resources to prevent that and also to heal from compassion fatigue, which happens with a lot of people who love animals. If you're rescuing them and they die or a conflict happens, then this takes a toll on us as well.
I had, you know, I was going through this just a couple weeks ago. I got a new camper that I stuck out in the woods during quarantine, you know, to do my writing. And the road that I drive down, I pass probably 3 to 4 squirrels or other little animals each time that I would drive there, who are smashed right in the road. There's no other way to say it any nicer. And part of my thing is I have a roadkill ministry, so I pull over and I pick them up and I get them off the road and I cover them in, you know, some flowers and I give them a blessing and I move on. But what I really realized, because I'm not used to driving that road so much, and now I'm commuting it because my life has changed in the pandemic, I noticed what was a joyful thing of going to this place, right, to do my writing and to relax and do my self-care, all of a sudden started with trauma, right? Being exposed to all these little dead bodies on the way. And so I wish I had known about this phone number. I would have called you guys every day that I was commuting and said, drive with me. But I think this is this can be a big thing, even something like that. I mean, I want folks to know that even something that we might judge as small can have a big effect on our heart. It doesn't have to be just being at the factory farm hauling chickens out right into a truck. That these individual things that we're experiencing on a daily basis around animal cruelty um, are real. They're real.
Oh yes, and that's what we try to do is help people. Just providing we have a basis of nonviolent communication as part of how we respond to people in that way. So we really like to empathize with people and then strategize solutions if that's appropriate. So we have that. You can also reach us by online chat, texting, email, or the good old-fashioned phone. So that happens. And we've
Awesome.
also put together webinars that are on activist resilience and all kinds of things. So we have resources through our YouTube channel where people can learn more and hear from professionals in the field, such as Dr. Melanie Joy, who's written several important books for animal activists, and also Claire Mann, who's a psychologist who specializes in helping animal activists. And so we've actually worked with these people to provide resources for activists. So that's part of what we do. And then there's the spiritual piece. And so trying to find that home for connecting people who feel spiritual, but they also feel a sense of connection to the vegan lifestyle. We created something called vegan spirituality, and this is an opportunity for people to really explore what does it mean to be a spiritual vegan. And so this is an opportunity for people to really join together and discuss and co-create, what does this mean? So it may mean that we create new rituals, such as what happens when our animal companions die, or how do we support one another when someone is upset about an animal who's died in the road. So really creating new types of traditions that can reflect this need of support, and also a sense of connecting on a deeper level with what's going on in the world where we relate to animals, to fellow animals, I will say.
And that group meets, I think you guys are the is it the third Thursday of the month?
Oh, well, we actually have an online meeting that
Oh, is
meets,
that
it's
right?
the second Thursday of the month, but we do have groups in different cities all across the country called Los Angeles Vegan Spirituality, or Tucson Vegan Spirituality, Olympia Vegan Spirituality. So they're all over the place. And people who are interested in the overlap or the intersection of those two topics can join in. And then there's a person who's leading the group, and they create events each month. And they were in person. Now we're kind of re-navigating that piece. But the idea is to know that you're part of a community that is curious about this and wants to explore what does it mean. So we bring in spirituality, and we also bring in the social aspect of connecting with one another and building community.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the rebellious question that I know someone has in the back of their mind right now, which is, if they aren't vegan yet, do they need to be to attend one of these groups? Do you need to make that choice first before attending, or can you come to the group to learn whether you'd like that to be part of your spirituality?
Well, that is a great question. So, a lot of these groups, they're not your Vegan 101 group. They're not your group where you're going to be necessarily learning how to be vegan, but you are welcome to, as a curious person, to come and join in and to really find out what is the spiritual part of this. How does it work along with the choices that we make to eat a certain way or to wear certain clothes because they don't involve animal products. So generally the group is very accepting of everyone who wants to join in, and most people probably will help with little tips and things like that. But the idea is to welcome people and to have a place where people who are vegan can get a sense of camaraderie and support.
All right. Well, that's good to know, because sometimes those of us who may have a little angst of joining a group or some concern about what we need to be able to be in that group, it sounds like we can show up to find out a little bit and not worry about having had to have fully be an expert in order to attend to find out more.
Oh yeah, yeah. Our groups are very welcoming, and we also have some events that are open to everyone, just for exploring. And I think that's a fun way to also do some outreach to people who might be a little more curious.
Got it. Okay. And I have to ask, I know you have this one web page that has these incredible PDFs. I believe it's the page for the Interfaith Vegan Coalition that has these great resources or advocacy kits broken down by religion, with all sorts of awesome quotes and supports and looking at the scriptures and all sorts of things, so that if you're already in a spiritual community and you might want to help people understand how to expand their circle of compassion, that there's some resources there as well. Do I remember
Oh,
this right?
yes, you do. Perfectly well, in fact. So yeah, part of what has grown out of exploring veganism as a spiritual practice was a need to band together with other groups who are practicing and exploring veganism within their tradition. So there's so many amazing groups that are doing vegan advocacy within their tradition or religion. There's Dharma Voices for Animals, which is exploring the Buddhism for vegans and vegetarians. There's a Jewish Veg, which really looks to bring veganism to the Jewish community. There's the Christian Vegetarian Association. There's just so many of these great groups. So we wanted to kind of band together and create a unified voice, which we call the Interfaith Vegan Coalition. So I co-founded this with Judy Carmen, and we worked together to provide advocacy tools for people within their tradition. So what that means is if somebody goes to a church and they feel like they're the lone wolf, the only vegan there, and they're trying to talk to the administration there or the clergy there, and they just don't quite know exactly what to say don't want to offend anyone. How do I do this? So we've actually put together these kits, the vegan advocacy kits, that people can use that are specific to the tradition, and they're actually written by people who practice that faith. So they'll offer suggestions that really go in line with what the tradition is already practicing or the values that they have. So we've found that this is a very effective way to reach out to people, trying to give people what they need. So the person, the lone vegan or the person who is concerned about animals in the community, can start to bring in and have a guide of how do I do that? How do I bring in these ideas? Sometimes they're simple ones, like what if we could try cruelty-free products such as cleaning materials? How can we do that? Maybe we can offer a vegan or vegetarian option at an event. So trying to kind of take these small steps so that people feel comfortable, and maybe having a speaker series to look at compassion for all beings. There's so many ways, and we have one that is open to all denominations, and then we have specific kits, and we're still looking for people to contribute more kits. So if you don't see your tradition listed, it's because we're not done. We are still in process, and if you feel like you'd like to help with one of those, you're welcome to reach out to us. You can always connect through interfaith at idausa.org. That will get you towards us, and then we can also, there's opportunities to sign up for our newsletter, join to meetings that we have each month, because this is a community. We want to really hear what everyone has to say.
I love this too because what you all have is so much information that people can find small things to get their feet wet too, right? Like you were just talking about, what if we make this small change? Those small change can end up being big changes, but things like, you know, being default vegetarian for our potlucks, right? Or things where we're looking at just can we have a liturgy? One service where we're talking about creation care and compassion for animals beyond just the blessing of the animals in the fall, right? That's the one that most churches do, right? But what are some of these creative ideas for starting to get people to think about the connection? Think about, you know, um, how do my spiritual values intersect with, you know, what we're eating and what we're wearing and what we're buying for our spiritual fellowship, all of those type of things. So the website again is, say it,
It's
Lisa.
interfaithvegancoalition.org.
There you go. So I'm going to make sure that I have a whole list of these because I think Lisa has like 17 websites for us or something along that line for each one of these different tools that she's talked about today. So I'm going to ask you one more question, then my super secret question. So if there was one thing that you would want to say to the people who are listening right now, who are starting this journey of putting together spirituality and animals, and they're hearing all of this, and it's just starting to, you know, kind of bang around in here a little bit, right? What is the first thing, or the most helpful thing, or what is one thing that you would recommend that they do?
Well, I think it's essential to be kind to yourself, actually. So as you're going through this journey, on the support line, sometimes we get calls where people feel guilty for the animals that they have eaten before they knew about the suffering that they were enduring, or the fur coat they wore before they learned of the process involved. So people, you know, when we become um, more aware of what's behind what we've been eating or wearing or purchasing, then sometimes we feel guilty. And so it's really about being kind to yourself, and also starting from the moment that you gain this awareness, and moving forward with that, because we can look back at what's happened in the past, and sometimes it helps as we're going through this process thinking, oh gee, I can't believe I did that when I had so little awareness, but now things have changed, and you're really it's almost like a whole new way of looking at the world has come upon you. So being gentle and kind with yourself is really important, um, because that's also key to helping other people take that same step, because we want to be kind and compassionate with them.
I love that. I do. I still look at my wedding photos, my amazing husband. I got married, and I'm one of those women who doesn't like to be in a dress very long. And so I wore the big, beautiful wedding dress for about a half hour. And then my bridesmaids and I, and you may gasp at this, Lisa, knowing me, but we all changed into black leather pants and tube tops, cashmere tube tops and black leather pants. And I didn't know we looked awesome. We looked awesome and we looked great in the photos. And now I look at them and I think, oh, I didn't know. I
Mhm.
didn't know. So there's a piece of still being able to say, darn good wedding, but I might make some different choices the next time around. Not getting divorced, but the next big party where I'm choosing what I'm wearing. So I think that that being gentle piece really, really resonates for me. All right. Are you ready for my big super secret question? Okay.
Yes, I am.
All right. Here we go. Let's say a new being was just discovered. Here's a description of the being. It is furry, purplish in color, about 24 inches tall, with a long tail, two transparent webbed wings, large green eyes, very small ears, no teeth. What would you name the species?
Boy, that is really tricky. Oh my gosh. Hmm. Hmm. You
First
might
thing
have.
that pops in your mind, don't overthink it. First thing that pops in your mind. It's furry, purple, 2 feet tall, long tail, two webbed wings, big, huge green eyes, tiny, tiny ears, and no teeth.
Wow. Maybe a um, purple bundle of love.
Oh, okay. I love that. I like this question because it's interesting that we have pets that we name all the time. Sometimes we ask them, like, hey, what's your name? Or we say it and we see if they respond, right? But we do name things. And when we name them, then we kind of categorize them and we choose what we're going to do with them. So it's interesting to me when we get to name something. To name something as a bundle of love instead of dinner. Lisa, I'm with you.
Oh. It's funny when you said that, I thought my first instinct was to think, what would you do with this new creature? And I thought, oh, well, I might have that instinct to want to hug the creature, but actually, I might stand back and observe and see how to get to know this creature so that they wouldn't be afraid and they might be open to my presence. So perhaps, I know for cats, they have the soft eyes. You can blink your eyes at them. So they might maybe to discover what would be their special way of communicating so that we can show them that it's safe with us. That's one of the things that I do when I encounter wild animals. And actually, I just saw a beautiful buck outside my deck this morning, and I usually just try to convey and emanate peace. Like, you're safe here. I want to bring you peace. Sometimes I'll say something gentle, like, you are safe here, that type of thing, because that's what we want. We want to have open communication and mutual respect with all animals.
Oh, if I was a new creature, I would want Lisa to find me first.
Oh,
I
how fun.
would. Lisa, thank you so much for your time. Lisa, again, is from In Defense of Animals. She works on the Sustainable Activism Campaign, the Wild Animals Campaign, Vegan Spirituality, Toad Detour, Interfaith Vegan Coalition. We'll make sure to get the links up so that anyone who's interested in any or all of those things can find out more about Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you. Such a pleasure, Sarah. This has been such a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very grateful to you.